Hello everyone, my name is JayJen.
And this is Logan.
And welcome to the WireTap. This week was the State of the Union address, and there's a lot of things that we can dissect from that, and there's a lot of things that have happened since then. At the time that Trump gave this speech, he was still under the threat of impeachment. And, of course, those articles failed, the next day. And then on Friday, you've had the Democratic debate to where they had to lament the fact that his impeachment failed. So there's just been a lot of things that have happened. Trump, took his victory lap. He had his day of celebration. And it appears as though, for the time being, that all is well in Trumpville, quite honestly. And I want to focus specifically on the State of the Union. And you know what, actually, we'll touch on impeachment here for just a minute, because I just want to specifically focus on Mitt Romney and his little games and whatever it is that he was trying to do, his strategery in terms of the impeachment. Romney voted guilty on the first article of impeachment, which was abuse of power, voted not guilty on the second article, which was obstruction of Congress. So Romney was the only Republican to break from the party line of the guilty, not guilty, joined the Democrats on the first article of impeachment, and he, got his standing ovation and round of applause from the Democrats on Friday night at the debate. I don't really know what Romney hoped to gain from this. I honestly don't know. It's the dumbest political strategy, if it even is a political strategy.
I mean, he's got his 5 minutes in the sun from CNN and the liberal media.
I'm almost more inclined to believe that this is just an overwhelming personal disdain for Trump, more so than it is any sort of political strategy.
Probably.
And if so, that's... Of
course, why would he vote not guilty on Article 2 then?
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I think that the voters of Utah will probably rectify that in the next chance that they have.
2024.
Yeah, it should be 2024, and I have a strong feeling that they will probably rectify that issue.
Of course,
between now and then,
honestly,
pending what happens. But granted, this is early in his term.
He's probably planning on running for president again, 2024.
Maybe.
I'd be willing to bet you he's probably going to abandon his Senate seat to try to run for president again.
I imagine that him being in the Senate, him running for Senate, was a way to keep himself relevant, or to try to keep himself in the public eye, in the public sphere, in the political realm, before he tries to run for president again. And if he does, Republicans remember that it will have only been 12 years since he tried this last time. Don't let him do it again. Please. He wasn't a good candidate the first time, but he was the only thing that we had to vote for other than Obama. That was it. We had Romney. Woohoo! And I mean, there's really not a whole lot more to say. I know you had a lot of takes on Twitter and responses and stuff like that on social media about Romney, and it's really just not worth it, because I saw things from people saying that Romney should be thrown out of the Republican Party. He should this, he should that, and folks, we've known for a long time. We talked about this for a long time, that we know who Romney is. We know what he is. If you expected anything other than a rhino Republican, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because Romney, quite frankly, is not a conservative. He's just a Republican.
Yes.
And there's a big difference there between those two labels. There's a big difference. So let's switch gears and go back to the State of the Union. And I think this State of the Union speech, what it did is it hit on all of these major points that not just conservatives, but also people in the middle are going to care about. And I think that Trump did a good job of trying to relate those back to those voters, not necessarily the hardcore supporters, because he already has those people. Why does he need to placate to them? I think he was doing a good job of trying to relate those issues back to everyone, not just his hardcore base, not just his party supporters, but people from across spectrums, how it doesn't matter. And I think that was one of the central messages, was how it doesn't matter what part of the political spectrum you're on. The point is that you've benefited from my administration in these ways.
Yeah.
And let me show you why. And let me tell you the statistics, the figures, the facts as to why what I'm saying is true.
Well, the Washington Post did release their article with 31 false statements from Mr. Trump during his speech.
Well, of course they are. And I'd really like to see the Washington Post, and they probably have something like this, I don't know, about the Democrat debate and their continual attack. I don't know what it is, because this has happened since... I mean, I guess this whole primary season, the Democrat primary season, honestly, this has been a talking point, but about how Amazon does not pay any taxes whatsoever, which is simply not true. They pay taxes in other ways, but yes, they don't pay taxes in the specific area that they're talking about, but they pay more than their fair share in other areas and other types of taxes. I'd be interested to see the Washington Post do a fact check on that, considering how Jeff Bezos owns, obviously, Amazon and the Washington Post as well. That's just an interesting contradiction there.
Well, the whole most hilarious thing from the Washington Post, I read the article of their Pinocchios and everything. Trump said, since my election, we have created 7 million new jobs. That is false, according to the Washington Post, because there have only been 6.7 million jobs created since his inauguration.
The 300,000 is enough for, they're splitting hairs there, and I mean, is that not in reality probably within like the margin of error?
Without doubt.
In terms of like the
hundreds of millions of people that are in the United States who are eligible to work.
I cannot believe that's the 300,000 people. Yeah, that makes all the difference, and that's what they have to do. They have to parse these hairs, or they, or just outright falsehood. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah,
and that's what they have to do. They have to intentionally kind of mislead or parse hairs very, very slimly there, and that's 300,000 people. That is, without a doubt, almost within the margin of error, if not in the margin of error in terms of calculating these kinds of numbers. 300,000 people is not a lot of people. But you had a lot of special moments during the State of the Union, and a lot of points hit on. You had immigration, you had healthcare, you had, anything. Look at the news today and just pick anything that you want, and there was something there for you, something there that he addressed that is an issue either that they are making progress on or want to be making progress on.
Except impeachment. He didn't mention impeachment.
And this reminds me of the drama, in the beginning, to where Trump didn't shake Pelosi's hand. Pelosi rips up the speech, all this kind of stuff. And all that is just kind of the sideshow. It should be no surprise that Trump and Pelosi do not like each other. It shouldn't come as a surprise, and quite frankly, it's almost expected. Did Trump intentionally snub Pelosi's handshake? I don't know, because he didn't shake Pence's hand, and quite honestly, it looked to me like, because he turned around to give them copies of the speech, and it looked like he was in the process of turning around, and Pelosi sticks out her hand. It almost seemed to me like, I think he saw it, but he wasn't going to turn back around to shake her hand. I think he was just going to continue on with what he was doing. And, then at the end of the speech, Pelosi just takes it and tears it up, which is she did it obviously. She literally stood up and did it and made a show of it. Did it twice, in fact, because she had, I guess, 2 different copies or whatever. But it's all just a sideshow. It's all just back and forth between them.
That's not something that I really care about.
No.
Obviously, that's dominated the news cycle, and honestly, it's dominated the news cycle more than the substance of the speech, which is upsetting.
Well, because they can't attack the substance of the speech, so they have to go back to attacking the temperament or the mannerisms or the personality of Donald Trump, and creating this narrative of he intentionally snubbed her hand and all that kind of stuff, snubbed her handshake and blah blah blah, and it's all a sideshow because we all know that they hate each other. We all know that they don't like each other, and like I said, and it's pretty well understandable that they might had that disdain for each other.
And if it wasn't going to be that sideshow, then it was going to be how
it was going to be something.
AOC didn't go to the speech, or Talib got up and walked out.
Talib walked out. And that was the other thing.
Which we haven't even really heard about.
No. I saw that immediately afterward, and there was nothing after that. And, the reason why they do this kind of stuff is for publicity. They do this as a stunt. They do this, for the media attention. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez didn't even attend the State of the Union. Instead, she did an Instagram live stream, or a Facebook live stream, whatever it was, probably Instagram. Rashida Tlaib tweeted out and said that she had walked out at some point during it, and that it was just horrific, disgusting, vile, whatever else. So you're two brave congresswomen of the squad there, but everyone else, all the Republicans, everything like that, obviously enthusiastic, and on the left, the Democrat side, they all look like that they were at a funeral, and that was
besides the white,
besides
the white clothing,
women's
suffrage,
because they do that kind of stuff all the time, to where they wear these colors. They just did it with impeachment.
That's actually one of the reasons they have listed is women's suffrage.
Yeah.
There not?
They did the same thing during impeachment. They wore black because it was a solemn day. And they do that kind of crap all the time, to where they wear little pins, they wear certain colors, because that's the way that liberals think. And it's really interesting looking at the difference in psychology, honestly, between the two sides and the way that they think of things. Because the left is very big on making demonstrations.
Symbolic things.
Or making... doing things in relation to symbolism and protest and demonstration. They do that kind of stuff a lot. And it is just interesting to note. And perhaps one of the most, it shouldn't be divisive whatsoever, but it turned into such, was the awarding of the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Rush Limbaugh. Now, Rush Limbaugh is one of my biggest inspirations, and I know that he is to a lot of other people as well. And he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And Ocasio-Cortez, in the live stream that I mentioned before, she was receiving questions. She was doing a Q&A, and she was asked as to what she thought about Rush Limbaugh receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And she went on to say something to the effect of that, he had his Oprah moment to where he needed to act surprised, and she said, it's just the most fake thing that she's ever seen. His shocked face and the look of surprise was all just obviously fake. And that Rosa Parks received this award as well, and it just cheapens the value of the award. Donald Trump cheapened the value of it by not only giving it to Rush Limbaugh, but not giving him a separate ceremony outside the State of the Union for it. If we look back at other people who have received the Presidential Medal of Freedom under Barack Obama, we've had such notable figures, in society who have had an equal impact. Greater than Rosa Parks, even, because, Barack Obama's giving these Presidential Medals of Freedom, and he doesn't give them to just anyone. He doesn't just give them to his buddies,
Oh, no.
He doesn't just give them to the people who supported him, because you've had such notable figures like Robert De Niro,
Oh.
Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, and Bruce Springsteen receive Presidential Medals of Freedom. Now listen here.
Thunder Road is the inspiration to the nation.
Is practically America's national anthem. Now I say this, I am a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, and Tom Hanks is one of my favorite actors. And if Obama wants to give them Presidential Medals of Freedom, that's okay, that's fine. Because I'm sure that they do tons, and they have tons of money that they donate to different charities and do all that kind of crap, and that's fine. But you cannot tell me if they have received Presidential Medals of Freedom. Rush Limbaugh makes just as much money as any of them. He is in that same, income bracket as they are. And he does tons of charity work. He has the Betsy Ross shirts that he sells, and what charity does every shirt goes to? And what is it?
Tunnels to Tower.
Yeah, and
Tunnels to Towers.
all of the money from those Betsy Ross shirts goes to that charity. All of it. And there's tons of other charities that he gives to. And beyond just that, beyond any...
I think just take away the politics, take away the charity, just what he has done for talk radio in
terms of communication in general.
Yeah.
And in terms of the way that we consume news and the inspiration that he has been for other conservatives in media and other conservative news outlets. Fox News, probably would not have gotten the boom that it did if not for Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh becomes nationally syndicated, and Fox News is created at approximately the same time within the same sphere. But
that was your boom
Rush
of
Limbaugh
conservative news.
Yeah, like the rise of Fox News and Rush Limbaugh kind of goes hand in hand. And you cannot deny the effect, the impact, the transformation that he has had on media, on talk radio itself. People have referred to him as the man who saved AM radio.
Yeah.
Now nobody today solely broadcasts on AM radio. Rush Limbaugh doesn't even do that. He broadcasts all across the band. He has his own the Ditto Cam and all that kind of stuff on his own website, all that kind of stuff. All of your younger people, they broadcast, wherever it might be, AM, FM, online, streaming on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. But Rush Limbaugh, relative to other media figures like Glenn Beck, Mark Levin, Steven Crowder, any of those, he is technologically behind the curve, and yet he still retains an audience at least 2 times as large than that of Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
The last that I looked, and this was a couple of years ago, so this is just from memory. Rush Limbaugh has approximately 20 million listeners all across the nation, and all across the world.
Sean Hannity is the most notable figure on Fox News.
Sean Hannity is second, I believe, right behind him.
Yeah.
And then you have Glenn Beck and I think Mark Levin. Those are your top 4. Sean Hannity only has approximately 9, 10, or 11 million people listening. Rush Limbaugh almost doubles that audience. And he primarily broadcasts on AM radio, outside of if you are a Rush 24/7 member watching him or listening to him through his website online. He has virtually no social media presence. His Twitter has been inactive for 2 or 3 years now. He does no social media whatsoever, no YouTube. He hardly, until the last year, has even done any television interviews whatsoever. It's not been since within the last year to where he started making some more appearances on Fox and Friends, more than once a year with Chris Wallace. The point is that I think that he's more than deserving, given the people who before have received this award, the highest civilian award that you can get, given the way that he's transformed the way that we consume media, and the people who have risen up inspired by him and in his footsteps in media. I think that he's more than deserving of the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yes. And there's a difference in influence, I think, between how Rush Limbaugh influences people and how Tom Hanks influences people and influences society.
Because, I mean, this is a little different, but like, you can maybe make a case like with Bruce Springsteen. The perspective that he writes from, the things that his songs are about, that kind of stuff, is the blue-collar American, the person who works in factories or mines or, just your blue-collar kind of work. The perspective that he writes from that is just purely American. Sure, you can make an argument for that just because he is culturally significant and played a role. Ronald Reagan used his music, all that kind of stuff, and he was very popular 70s, 80s, all that kind of stuff. You can make arguments for that, but I think that it is obvious, so much more obvious and so much more clear cut with Rush Limbaugh than it is with those kind of cultural icons.
Yes,
because Rush Limbaugh isn't so much just a cultural icon, although he is. He also has like a real impact in such a way as to the way that the media operates,
Yes.
But I think that he's more than deserving, and I think that without a doubt that he was really totally shocked that he was receiving that award there at the State of the Union, because it is unprecedented. That's never happened before. It does usually always get its separate ceremony, but given the fact that Rush announced his advanced stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis on Monday, I think Trump just wanted to give him that as quickly as possible. Give him that honor as quickly as possible and not to delay that fact.
He's going through treatment, and he wants to be on the radio as much as he possibly can.
Mm-hmm. And, whenever it comes to stuff like that, you truly never know. You truly never know. Just this week at school, there was a fellow student who last week, his grandfather was diagnosed with an advanced form of cancer, and it was a stage 4. I don't know what it was, but they told him that he had a couple months to live. About 3 days later, he's doing very poorly. They go back to the hospital and they give him a couple days, like literally 2 or 3 days to live now, and the next day he had died. 4 days prior, they were telling him that he had approximately 2 to 3 months to live. 4 days later, he passes away. That's the thing with this. You never know, and that's just the reality of our own mortality, and that's a whole other conversation, though, in that respect. But we want to thank you for joining us on this edition of the WireTap, and It really is fun, and I say this all the time, doing this kind of stuff. And make sure you comment down below on ideas that you want to see in the future. You can go to SoundCloud, listen to us on there, or you can watch us here on YouTube. But make sure you subscribe, you like, you comment, the whole gamut. We really do appreciate you watching us today. So for Logan, I am JD saying goodbye, God bless, and we will see you in the next episode.